morning. My name is Kat, and we'd love to welcome you to Open Circle this morning. Please turn off your cell phones. I know you think they might be off, but check. Check, 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 check. Yes, I'm a control freak. That's my role. It's fun. I don't get paid for it, but I will do it as a volunteer. Today's Open Circle mission statement is going to be read by Don Monroe. Are you doing a talk this year while you're here? Maybe. Huh.
Open Circle mission statement. Open Circle provides a supportive environment to gather for social interaction and to improve our understanding of ourselves, our community, and our world. Presentations span a wide range of intellectual, cultural, physical, and spiritual topics. We do not necessarily agree with the ideas and philosophies of our presenters. We encourage you to listen with an open mind and form your own opinions.
Thank you, sir. Oops. We are always looking for presenters for Open Circle. We're quite a far out in the future, so if you're even contemplating it, you want to speak to David Bryan. I don't think Margaret's here this morning. So David Bryan, and he can kind of give you the info and what it takes. You can also go onto our fabulous website, which is opencircleajijic.org, and it will tell you what to do. You can even download all the sort of the step work for it. So please feel free to do that. If you're not a very good speaker, don't do it. Just saying. If you're not on our email list sign up, you can do so under the big tree where Santa is standing. I don't know if he'll have his beard on by the end. It's bothering him. He's got an itch in his beard. That's all I know about him. No other itches am I aware of. So you can do that there, or you can go onto our website again, opencircleajijic.org, and you can sign up there. And while you're there, you can look around, see what's coming up. You can see photographs. You can also go to a section of the website that's going to tell you to go to YouTube, Chapaladrone, and you can download past talks. And we're close, maybe not that close, but we have, how many are downloaded now?
Past episodes were somewhere around 180 to 200.
About 180 to 200 past episodes, and then the most recent for the last maybe 4 months?
Yeah, 5 months.
5 months? So that's pretty amazing. Some people love to do it, right, to see people that have passed, to see friends who spoke here before. And anyway, you're welcome to that. We'd like to welcome those of you here for the first time. If you would please stand up and we'll just say hi. Welcome. Nice to see you. Nice to see you. Nice to have you here. So let's get started. So this is a thing. I've heard that there's a little bit of complaints that maybe I put down men in my jokes. It's rather easy to do. So I thought I would, I'm going to try to put down women. It's harder to find the things, but, and I'm going to start with the lowest common denominator of woman in jokes terms. A blonde goes to the post office to buy stamps for her Christmas cards. She says to the clerk, "May I have 50 Christmas stamps?" The clerk says, "What denomination?" The blonde says, "God help us, has it come to this? I'll take 22 Catholic, 12 Presbyterian, 10 Lutheran, and 6 Baptist." Okay, not that funny? Well, I thought it kind of was. See, you don't like blonde jokes. The Supreme Court has ruled that they cannot have a nativity scene in Washington, D.C. This wasn't for any religious reasons. They couldn't find 3 wise men and a virgin. Jay Leno. 3 men die on Christmas Eve and go to heaven, where they are met by St. Peter. In order to get in, he tells them, you must each produce something representative of the holidays. The first man digs into his pockets and pulls out a match and lights it. He presents a candle of hope. Impressed, Peter lets him in. The second man pulls out a tangle of keys and shakes them. These are bells. He's allowed in too. So Peter says to the third man, "What do you have?" The third man proudly shows him a pair of red panties. "What do these have to do with Christmas?" asked Peter. "They're carols." Oh, come on, you know. Let's do my, I just have to do this. Dear Santa, I have been good all year. Well, most of the time. Once in a while, oh, never mind, I'll buy my own stuff. Words of wisdom for today are from a sparrow, a small bird for those of you who don't know what a sparrow is. A sparrow was lying in the street with his legs straight up in the air, sweating a little under its feathery arms. A warhorse walks up to the bird and asks, "What on earth are you doing?" The sparrow replies, "I heard the sky was falling and I wanted to help." The horse laughs a big, loud, sneering horse laugh and says, "Do you really think you're going to hold back the sky with your scrawny little legs?" And the sparrow says, "One does what one can." Next week's presentation, The High Cost of Doing Nothing, presented by David Pissarra. Doing nothing, killing time, chilling out. It all sounds so relaxing, but it comes with a price. Each week we can take small steps to accomplish our goals. In this inspirational speech, the lesson of regular progress is reinforced. David Pissarra is an international speaker who travels the world to motivate the meek, inspire the idle, and empower the fearful. I wish him good luck with us. Oh. Today's centering moment is led by David Dennis.
I look around like this because all eyes are on me, and I think it feels good. It's Christmas, soon. Christmas Eve tomorrow, Christmas Day the next day. We all have our memories, childhood, with our kids, and today. For some of us it's mixed, for some more negative than positive. Childhood issues, you know how it is. So what I'd ask you to do is sit in your chair, and Phil told me that last time I did this, I forgot to mention, make sure you know the chair will hold you up so you don't get nervous. Relax and consider the memories, recent and way back, of Christmas season, holiday season, that make you smile and warm your heart. And see if you can let go of the rest. Take a deep breath. Let your chair hold you up. And consider the holiday season and all that makes you smile and all that warms your heart today and in the past around this particular season. Take a couple of more deep breaths. Become present to this beautiful day, and I think they're singing birds. And enjoy the presentation.
Thank you. This week's presentation, Diamonds Are a Girl's Best Friend, presented by John Wells. Diamonds and other precious gemstones have fascinated people all over the world for millennia as evidence of wealth and power, as well as for personal decoration. Kings and queens have studded their crowns and other regalia with these glittering rocks to signify their importance. John will explain the origins of diamonds and other prized gemstones, as well as some newer stones, such as those produced following the eruption of Mount St. Helens. He will talk about their chemistry and mineralogy, where they were found, and how they are mined and produced. He will also talk about the good and the bad. John Wells has worked in the mining industry for 50 years and will share his experience and fascination with the exploration and production of precious metals and gemstones. Please join me in welcoming John Wells. Where is he?
Thanks, Kat. Hello, good morning. Everybody hear me okay? I can hear me. Okay, so I want to keep today to be fairly casual, not too much technical stuff. But basically, I'm going to tell a story about diamonds, how they were formed, the history, how they go from the mine to our fingers. I want to talk a bit about the most famous stones in the world, and sadly, we'll have to, no talk on diamonds would be complete without some reference to the dark side of the diamond story. Okay, I'll start off with a couple of little stories. About 50 years ago, a countryman of mine, Richard Burton, was married to a very famous actress, Elizabeth Taylor. And as is well known, Liz Taylor loved diamonds. She had a huge collection of diamonds. And she went out one day, Burton was somewhere around, and she saw a diamond for sale, and the diamond was about this size. Sorry for you guys at the back, but I've cut these things out as well as I can. It's now famously known as the Burton-Taylor diamond. It's a monster, 69 carats, and apparently, Liz went back and Burton was probably sipping some whiskey or something, and she said she'd seen this diamond, she really wanted it, but it was expensive. And the quotation from Burton is, he said, and here's a message for all you guys at Christmas, he said, "I don't care what it costs, go buy it." Liz bought it, I think for, it cost several million then, and she wore it as a ring initially, and later decided it was more appropriate to wear as around her neck. This diamond probably now, because of its fame and its size, probably would sell for well over $50 million. A nice part of this story is that when Liz passed away, she donated her diamond collection to the charity she'd set up, her AIDS Foundation, and apparently her diamonds were all auctioned for a total price of $156 million, which went to a good cause. The other story that I enjoy, now this is this is either myth or reality. I'm not much of an artist, but John Lennon wrote a very famous song called "Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds." And he was accused afterwards that it was really a song about Lucy, L, Sky, S, and Diamonds, D, LSD. And apparently Lucy O'Donnell came out of the woodwork, and when Lucy was 4 years old, she and Julian Lennon, who was 4 years old at the time, and John's son, Julian drew this, and I've tried to reproduce it. Maybe he did a better job than me. But there's Lucy, the 4-year-old, there's the sky, and when Julian took it home to his dad, John said, "Well, what's that?" And Julian said, "Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds." Myth or fantasy, John said he would swear to God or Chairman Mao or anyone you like, it didn't stand for LSD. But who knows? the main protagonists are no longer with us. Okay, the first engagement diamond was apparently bought by the Archduke Maximilian of Austria in 1477 for his wife-to-be, Mary of Burgundy, and also Shakespeare, in his play Cymbeline, he wagered a diamond ring that his opponent would not be able to seduce his wife. And apparently the hero won the bet. Okay, very briefly on the origins. One of the wonderful things about these stones is that what you're wearing on your ring or on your hand is something that was formed between 2 and 3 billion years ago. And when you consider the world is 4.7 billion years old, that's pretty ancient. They were formed by huge heat and pressure, approximately 100 kilometers down below the surface of the Earth, and then forced up in these pipes. What it probably was, when the Earth was cooling down, there were vast amounts of carbonaceous gases, methane, things like that, and these gases were compressed and heated and eventually formed the diamonds. A slightly more exotic explanation, most of the diamonds prior to the 1800s came from the Far East. They came from India, Thailand, Sri Lanka, and so on. And the feeling in India is that the diamonds were produced just like onions. They grew after the rain. Now, this may sound crazy, but what in fact was probably happening is after the tremendous monsoons, all the water flowed down the rivers, churned over the gravels, and then after the water receded, the diamonds were that much easier to see. Now, not all volcanoes produce diamonds. Most of the volcanic pipes are in places like South Africa, Botswana, and in Arkansas in the USA, and in northern Canada. Northern Canada is quite an interesting story. But one particularly interesting story is that when Mount St. Helens erupted in 1980, 1982, subsequently some of the minerals that were produced led to this 4-carat stunner, and this is called helenite. And the story, when they went in and they started digging around in the aftermath of the explosion, they didn't find these stones, but they did find minerals that, with some heat, they accidentally produced these enormous gems. And this is from Mount St. Helens, and has been called helenite. The talk basically that I'm giving today is focused on diamonds. Depending on how quickly I can get through this, I'll say a few words about some of the other precious metals such as sapphires, rubies, emeralds, and so on. But essentially, one of the real interesting things about diamonds, as I'm sure 99% of you know, they're made of carbon. That's all there is. It's pure carbon. Carbon as in coal in these trees, in our bodies and whatever. That's all it is. It's nothing more exotic than carbon. And it's just that the atomic structure, by the pressure and temperature, has formed these stones. Now, if you're in a river, a gravel river, looking for diamonds, this is what you'd see. You'd see a whole range of colors. We all think of diamonds as being colorless, but in fact, the reality is most diamonds are yellow or brown. And they are octahedral in shape. They've got 8 sides. The other key thing about diamonds, they are incredibly hard. They are the hardest substance known to man. Only a diamond will scratch a diamond. And it really, the thing I would caution you with is, although they're hard, they are brittle. If you smash a diamond hard enough with a big hammer, you're likely to break it, and we'll get back and talk a bit more about that later. So that's what you'd see typically, and in recent years, coloured diamonds have become incredibly popular and of tremendous value, and I'll give you some illustrations of that. Just again to talk about one or two stories. One of the most famous diamonds in the world is this monster here in blue, and it's called the Hope Diamond. And this one is straight out of the Indiana Jones Harrison Ford storybook. Back in the 1600s, a French explorer was in the jungle in India, and he came across, just like in Indiana Jones, he came across a huge statue with one eye. And he made the mistake of prizing this diamond out of the statue, and he took it back to France, and it ended up in the property of the king's wife, who is Marie Antoinette. And subsequently, this diamond, she was able to smuggle it out of France, but as you all know, she ended up losing her head, and the diamond is typically called the unlucky diamond or the cursed diamond, and people who've owned it have reputedly committed suicide. They were beheaded in the case of the Queen. They were mauled by dogs. They had bad marriages and bad hair days. So this diamond is very famous, and its value estimated at the moment in auction $250 million. The earrings that I'm showing you here, these were Marie Antoinette's earrings. They were recently put on the block this year for auction at $1.5 million, and they sold for $36 million, beating the previous best for similar that were part of Liz Taylor's collection. The biggest diamond ever found, and these things always make the news, just a few weeks ago in northern Canada, they found a diamond 552 carats. That's pretty much as big as a chicken egg. But the biggest ever found was the size of a hand. It was called the Cullinan diamond, and I'll talk a little more about that. And that was found in 1905 by Fred Wells in the Premier Mine in South Africa. And it was cut into 3 huge diamonds that are part of Queen Elizabeth's collection. So the most diamonds that we see are coloured. That's due to minor impurities. One of the tough ones about diamonds is how do you value these things? And there's the 4 C's are what values a diamond. Number 1 is carats. How big is it? The Cullinan diamond was 3,160 carats. So this is a measure of weight. 1 carat is 0.2 of a gram, and a 1 carat diamond would have a crown of about 0.4 of a centimetre. So it's a pretty substantial rock. The other thing is the cut. Cutting diamonds is typically done in Antwerp and in Israel, and more recently, a lot of diamond cutting is done in India. Sadly, Canadian diamonds, the original hope was that we could cut them by setting up cutting shops back in the Northwest Territories, or certainly in North America, but you simply cannot compete with the costs of cutting diamonds and the skill in places like India. Then there's the clarity, and then there's the colour. So they're the basis on which diamonds are valued. Typically today, if you were looking for a 1 carat pure diamond, pretty much flawless, the going rate is something in the nature of $15,000. So if you've had any aunties who've bequeathed you any big diamonds, make sure you look after them. But there's, in addition to the 4 Cs, there's 2 other things that add to their value and are part of the valuation. Their fame, the blue diamond, the Burton Taylor diamond, their value would be immensely more. And also the rarity, the red diamonds and the pink diamonds are very rare, very beautiful, and they have a tremendous value. Yeah, just an aside, red diamonds right now, they're extremely rare. And I said a pure colorless diamond probably is retailing for about $15,000. A red diamond, good quality, would probably set you back about $1 million for a 1-carat stone. Okay, we'll talk a bit about the Cullinan diamond. Was the size of a hand. It's the biggest diamond ever found at 3,160 carats. And it took 6 months for these guys to plan how they would cut it. The original hope is they could cut it into 2, and the most famous diamond cutter of all time was a guy called Joseph Asher. And after 6 months of planning, and I think the planning process for this 552-carat monster they found in Canada in October, they'll probably be planning the cutting of that for months, not days. So Asher started cutting, and he intended to cut into 2. When he started cutting, it broke into 3, and apparently he fainted. But he had a doctor and a nurse in attendance who brought him round. And eventually Asher was able to cut it into 9 big stones and 96 smaller stones. And the 2 biggest are in the property of Lizzie Windsor. And you can see those in the Tower of London. Cutting diamonds this is where the real value goes. A rough diamond, by the time it's been cut and polished, and you do that with diamond dust, diamond cutters, it's a case of Goldilocks and the 3 bears. It's just got to be just right. And modern day technology uses computers to just make sure the facets are cut properly. A well-cut diamond would have at least 58 faces and as many as 70 to 80 faces. But the real key is you've got to get not just the faces just right, but you've got to get the depth just right as well. What you're looking for is as the blue light comes in, it's refracted through the diamond and back out the top. You've got a diamond on your ring, on your finger, you want to see those colors. You want everyone else to see them. So it's got to be just right. If it's too shallow or it's too long, then the light goes out the sides or the bottom. South Africa is a wonderful place to see cutting and polishing of diamonds typically would take about 3 days, and at least 50% of the weight of the diamond is lost during the cutting and polishing process. The De Beers collection in South Africa, that is on display, and it shows every cut and every color of diamond that's available. Okay, quick one about some of the characters who've shaped the diamond industry. Prior to 1860, diamonds were exceedingly rare. And as I said earlier, they came from streams and gravels in India. But in 1866, a young boy, Jacob Erasmus, son of a South African farmer of Dutch descent, he found a pretty pebble on the banks of the Orange River. And he gave it to his sister, who in those days they didn't have Wi-Fi or computers to play with, so kids would collect pretty stones and pebbles. And it ended up in the hands of a gentleman called Van Niekerk, and he recognized it as a diamond, and that ended up back in Cape Town, and it was cut into a 15-carat diamond valued at the time of £500 and was appropriately called the Eureka Diamond. A couple of years later, the same Van Niekerk was wandering around in the South African veldt, and he met an African villager who had a really big diamond, and he paid him the sum of 500 sheep, 10 oxen and a horse. And it was named the Star of South Africa, and it was valued at £11,000 in 1869. So typically, where do these diamonds come from now? Now, here's a map of the world, for what it's worth, for those at the back. And most diamonds come from Africa, and that's why I'm going to return to this rather dark and terrifying story of what happened in Sierra Leone. But Sierra Leone, the Central African Republic, the Congo, Botswana, South Africa, they're the main producers. Canada has become a very major producer of diamonds. There's currently about 5 or 6 mining operations in Canada, and the most recent is estimated will produce something like 54 million carats of diamonds over the mine life, which, if you want to put a value on that, it's pretty substantial. And that will start operations in the next few months. There is a mine, an interesting one, in the US of A. And it's in the Crater of Diamonds State Park in western Arkansas. Am I saying that right, Arkansas? Yeah, I always used to say Arkansas, but anyway, I've always wanted to say that. Anyway, they did find a monster there. It was the 15-carat Star of Arkansas. And apparently, if you go to this state park, they will give you a shovel and a pan and send you off in the river, and you can go pan for some diamonds. Okay, how do we find these things? Well, there's a number of characters who really have dominated the industry for many years, and I'll start with my favourite. And this gentleman is called Mr. Ostrich. And as many of you may know, but some birds have an affinity for stones. They like to digest stones, and birds like magpies are particularly taken with very bright objects. And these guys, as they wander around the plains of South Africa and Botswana and whatever, if they see a stone that looks particularly interesting, they'll eat it, and apparently the contents of ostriches was a really good indicator of where you might find alluvial diamonds. So I like this guy. The second guy in the story is a gentleman called Mr., and we're all familiar with these, Mr. Termite. And one of the early ways of finding diamonds, the volcanic pipe would push up from 80 100 miles below the surface of the earth, forming this huge column of rock, and it's a bluish color. It's called blue ground or kimberlite, and as it's fairly soft. As it weathers, it goes a more yellowy color, and then eventually you've got the topsoil, just the earth on the top. Well, the termites like to build their homes in these big termite piles, and they would burrow down into the blue ground, into the kimberlite, and come up, and you'd see these mounds, these termite mounds, and they would have a bluish tinge, which told the old-timers that there just might be diamonds underneath there. Okay, so after these two important guys, the next famous names are the brothers De Beer. The De Beers were a couple they were two brothers. They owned a farm in the Northern Cape in South Africa, and when diamonds were first found, they decided they would parcel off their farm into lots, 2 meters by 2 meters, 6 feet by 6 feet, and they sold each parcel for about 20 pound. So what subsequently happened, and this was my Lucy in the Sky effort. What subsequently happened was that the hill would just become a Swiss cheese, as all these individuals were digging like crazy to find the diamonds, and it ended up, as you can imagine, a pretty chaotic situation. But the De Beers farm, of course, gave its name to the De Beers company that was set up by Cecil John Rhodes, and he was one of the major players. Two guys went out to South Africa from England. Cecil Rhodes was the son of a parson, fairly high society type of guy, and the other one was a very interesting guy called Barney Isaacs, who later changed his name for some reason to Barney Bonato. And these two guys realized that this situation was not tenable, and they started to buy up these lots and try to get one organized mine going. They butted heads. Cecil Rhodes won out. He became chairman, called his company De Beers. Barney was then part of his board. But sadly, or maybe not sadly, both of these gentlemen died young. Cecil Rhodes had a heart attack at the age of 49. He had a weak heart. And Barney apparently jumped off a boat on the way back to London from Cape Town and committed suicide. But these colourful characters were followed by a German emigre. His name was Ernest, later Sir Ernest Oppenheimer. Oppenheimer formed an alliance with Cecil Rhodes and became the manager and owner of not only De Beers but also Anglo-American. So they really controlled the diamond and the gold business for something like 100 years. Okay, mine to market. The stones are now typically produced in very large process plants, and there's a whole bunch of methods that are used to recover them. I'll only mention two. Diamonds fluoresce under X-rays. So what we do is we pass the diamonds along a wide conveyor belt. You have an X-ray machine, just like when you go through immigration in Houston or Guadalajara, and you get X-rayed and the diamonds fluoresce. And this is an interesting point, because many people ask me, well, okay, what's the story with synthetic diamonds? A synthetic diamond is basically the same. There's no difference. They're pure carbon. But a synthetic diamond has a different fluorescent pattern to a genuine mined diamond. I can't tell you why that is the case, but just on the subject of synthetics, it's possible now to make beautiful synthetic diamonds. And one might ask the question, why bother to go dig holes in the ground if you can make them in a factory in Toronto or Johannesburg? The last data I saw, a 3-carat flawless mined diamond would sell for about $40,000. The equivalent size and quality of a synthetic stone would be about half of that price. There's about a 50% discount on the synthetic stones. So X-rays can be used to identify diamonds, and the other one is the famous grease table. Diamonds don't like water, and when you pass a mixture of gravel and diamonds over a table lined with grease, the diamonds stick in the grease, the gravel washes off. At the end of the 8-hour, 10-hour shift, you scrape off the grease and there's your diamonds. So, a couple of places in South Africa. If any of you are taking or have vacations in South Africa and you want to see this type of history and story, Kimberley is the location of this big hole. They kept going down until they simply couldn't go down any further. That's a wonderful place to visit. You can stay in the Barney Bonato Hotel in downtown Kimberley. And the other place to go is in Cape Town, the Cape Town Diamond Museum. You can actually see the guys cutting and polishing diamonds. You have to make a pre-arranged arrangement to go in and see them, but it's not difficult and it can be done. Okay, marketing. This whole story, once these big mines got going, the industry basically was producing more diamonds than they knew what to do with. So, as with all industries, they had to come up with some clever ideas, and Harry Oppenheimer, the son of Ernest Oppenheimer, back in the 1930s, went to New York and, what's the name of the street? Madison Avenue or Mad Men and this type of thing. And they worked on it and they came up with these slogans. Diamonds are a girl's best friend. Diamonds are forever. They're forever based on the fact they're very hard and they can't be destroyed. Hands up anyone who has owned or has owned a diamond. Yeah, well, you see, it basically worked. And what is in recent years, the supply of new diamonds is tending to go down. The demand is being pushed up by this very aggressive marketing, particularly in places like India and China and Japan. A major effort has been made there. But the one I really like is so many diamonds are very, very tiny. They're less than 0.1 carat. What do you do with those? Well, you can take your Hope diamond, which I've lost, and surround it with small diamonds. But the one I particularly like is apparently, this might be fact or fiction, apparently you can now buy a blue diamond frying pan from Walmart. It's non-stick, hammer-proof and scratch-proof. And they've actually used small diamonds or diamond dust in the frying pan. Okay, so the wonderful thing that then happens is all of these diamonds go to the sorting house and they are put into these, they're classified, and that's a very skillful job. The first thing you do is it industrial diamond or is it jewelry diamond? You make that categorization, and then you go, is it over 1 carat or less than 1 carat? And then you look at color, clarity, any flaws and whatever. And apparently there is a total of 16,000 categories of diamonds. Okay, so the diamonds go off to London, they're sorted, and then from there, every 5 or 6 weeks, there's something called the selling room, and all the buyers from Antwerp and India and Tel Aviv, they come in and they are given, literally given, this is your bag of diamonds for this particular day, take it or leave it. There was a lot of talk about the De Beers cartel, and with recent production from Canada and Russia and Australia, the cartel is not as strong as it was, but I'm quite convinced, in my opinion, the cartel is still very much of a going concern and is really determining what's going on in the world of diamonds. I did mention earlier Canada. Canada's become a really big player in the diamond world. A recent mine I mentioned will produce 54 million carats over a 12-year life. And another mine has just found this 530 carat stone. And it's said there's probably only 6 people in the world who have the skill to be able to cut that diamond. Synthetic against mined. Synthetic diamonds can be made, synthetic rubies can be made, and amethysts. They can all be made now in the laboratory, and the stones that are then cut and polished and faceted are every bit as impressive as the real thing. I think I mentioned earlier there's a 20 to 50% discount on mined stones. 3 carat mined stone would go for $40,000, a synthetic for about $20,000, and the synthetics are all sold with with certificates. Okay, so we've talked a bit about the glamour and the nice side of things. I'd now like to spend a few minutes talking about the dark side, as per Darth Vader, of diamonds, and that is the issue of blood diamonds. When we buy anything, if it comes from Sri Lanka or whatever, we don't want to think that it's been made using child labour. We certainly don't want to think that it's been messing up the environment, and we certainly don't want to think that the diamonds or the whatever we're buying in any way has supported war and terrorism. Now, what happened in the late 1980s and 1990s in Sierra Leone in West Africa is probably the most dramatic example of what can happen. Essentially, Sierra Leone is a very poor country, very low-lying jungle with a lot of streams and rivers and whatever. And a rebel group took up arms against the government that they saw as undemocratic or for whatever reason. And they started this fairly low-key civil war, but they soon realized that to finance their war, they needed to buy nasty stuff like AK-47s and whatever. And these diamonds were literally what they did. They took villages in the jungle and forced these people to dig in the rivers all day for basically pennies. And if they didn't do as they were told, the most amazing and cruel things were done to these people. And anyone going to Sierra Leone in the 1990s would have seen the streets with cripples, people without arms, legs, whatever. It went beyond anything that I think we can understand. It's estimated that something close to 75,000 people were killed or seriously maimed during this period. Now, if you want to read about it, a gentleman called Greg Campbell wrote an excellent but very depressing book about blood diamonds, and it's a superb but very disturbing read. National Geographic made a very, very good bio on the subject, and of course there was also the movie with Leonardo DiCaprio. The problem was that these diamonds were being brought out of the ground and people could smuggle them. I mean, a small packet of diamonds this big can sell for thousands of dollars. They can be taken out in the heel of a shoe, in the bend of a necktie, and in one case it was reported that one lady who had a false eye actually would take her eye out and stuff the diamonds into the cavity behind her eye and smuggle them out. And then they ended up in the Middle East. Some people have said that very likely they ended up in the hands of a certain Osama bin Laden, and they were used to fund this particularly brutal civil war. Now, there's a couple of bits of good news on this. It's basically been stopped. The industry realized they were getting a very black eye with this very bad publicity that was truly warranted. And they set up something called the Kimberley process, whereby each and every diamond that leaves Botswana or South Africa or Angola, whatever, each and every diamond will have a certificate. It will be classified, it will have a certificate number, it will be sealed, and there will be a certificate with it, with a number saying where it came from, and you can be pretty much assured that that diamond has not been the result of any of these things. Now, no system is perfect. It's said that 99% of all diamonds now are, in fact, safe, but, well, yes or no. But I would say this, that there's something like 10 million people in the world, people who live in countries like Sierra Leone, South Africa, Botswana, countries that need income. There's something altogether from mining to cutting the stones. There's something like 10 million people do get their salary and do earn their keep in this diamond industry. And one particularly nice story is that a 709 carat diamond was found in Sierra Leone quite recently, and 50% of the money, of the value of that diamond, was directly, reputedly given to the local people. Okay, I'll just finish up with, I'd just like to talk very briefly about some of the world's famous diamonds. Righto. I think I've listed 12 of the famous ones. Number 12, I'll put in place the Burton Taylor diamond, 69 carats. Number 11, the Eternity diamond that was purchased, which I've dropped. I've dropped that one as well. The Eternity diamond, 15 carats, was purchased by Floyd Mayweather for his fiancée. Okay, well, that's the Eternity. It was a blue diamond. Blue diamond. Floyd, the boxer, Floyd Mayweather, and he paid $16 million for that. This one is a very rare red. It's the Musif diamond. That's 13.9 carat diamond for you, and that one has a value auctioned for 20 million. The Hope diamond I've already talked about. It's my personal favorite, which is somewhere in that pile of stuff over there. And that is called the Unlucky or Cursed diamond. And it's about that sort of size. And that has an estimated value right now, without any doubt whatsoever, of about 250 million. Then we get down to these wonderful pink and red diamonds. This one is the perfect pink diamond. There have only ever been 18 of these offered for sale to the public, and that one is, what the heck is the value of that? Don't know. But anyway, I would imagine a lot of money. This one is the Oppenheimer diamond, I guess named after the Oppenheimer family. 14 carat blue diamond, and that was auctioned recently for this little stone, $57 million. The Pink Star, 50 carats, that sold for $71 million in 2017. The Centenary diamond, 273 carat monster, went for a cool 100 million. Where am I? How am I doing for time? I'm out. Righto. Okay, just perfect. Right, I've covered blood diamonds. Okay, the famous one, the Cullinan diamond, was this big. And 3,160 carats found in the roof of the stope at the Premier mine in South Africa, 1905. Nothing as big as this has ever been found before or since. It was cut into 3 stones. As I said, he intended to make two big ones. Number 4 is the Star of Africa, 516 carats. That's in the British Crown Jewels. Number 3, the Cullinan number 1, is in Queen Elizabeth's scepter, and the Cullinan number 2 is in her crown. I think the most famous diamond of all time, and I'll finish on this one, this is the diamond that is called the Koh-i-Noor diamond. Again, it's a monster. It was owned by an Indian Maharaja, so it has a wonderful history. It was given, I don't know why he would do this, to King Edward VII of Britain in 1905. I don't know why you ever give anything like that away, but anyway. And Koh-i-Noor is ancient Persian for, and I think this is very appropriate, the Mountain of Light. And it is the diamond that's on the front piece of Elizabeth's crown. Its value at auction, if it ever went to auction, I'm sure would be probably at least $1 billion because of its fame and size, clarity, and it's said to be, it was cut by Asher, the famous diamond cutter, and it's said to be the most perfectly cut diamond ever produced. Okay, I've gone over my time. Thank you very much for your patience.
If you'd like to ask a question, please raise your hand. A mic will be brought to you. Please stand up, hold the mic close to your mouth, and ask your question. One right here. There it is.
Are you aware of the people called Hearts of Fire diamonds, and they say that they've come up with some kind of computer way to cut the perfect diamond every time?
Yes, I am, and that is correct.
And what do you think about these things?
I think it's fine. I think it's okay. I think it's a good idea. If we can use computers or whatever to help us cut these things, it's grand.
Over there. Do you have anybody? Okay. Yes. He's coming. David's coming. Oh, wait. One in front of you.
Am I up?
Sorry.
When were diamonds first learned to be cut? Because it sounds like a really difficult process. So was it 200 years ago, 100 years ago, and how did it evolve?
Yeah.
Did they ruin a bunch of early diamonds?
Yeah, in the case of the Koh-i-Noor diamond, that was cut probably 500-600 years ago. After it was given to Edward, he had it repolished, recut. I don't know the answer to that. I mean, at some stage, someone must have seen these stones that were relatively uninteresting, as per my photograph here, and polished them and whatever, and they found the more they cut them, the more they polished them, the more brilliant they became in terms of the rainbow kaleidoscope of colors. I would guess, look, these precious stones were very much in favor with people like Cleopatra in Egypt, and that was what we're going back 2,500 years, something of that nature, and she was a great enthusiast of stones, particularly emeralds and whatever. Just as an aside, I said if I had time, I'd talk a little bit about some of these other stones, but pretty much everything I've said about diamonds applies to sapphires, rubies, and emeralds. If you want an emerald, go to Colombia, go to a reputable dealer. If you want a ruby, they're becoming exceedingly rare. India, Sri Lanka, what was Burma, it's now Myanmar, I think. That's the place to go for rubies and sapphires. Okay. So most of the commentary I've made would apply to these other stones.
I have read that that diamonds are really not that rare, but that some of these big diamond companies storehouse them and release them a little bit at a time in order to keep the price high. Is that true, or what do you think of that? Yep,
I think that's an extremely good question. I'll give you my personal view is that certainly in the 1970s and 80s, De Beers had more diamonds than they knew what to do with. They had a huge stockpile of these stones. They've worked through it in recent years by, I mentioned earlier, a very aggressive marketing campaign. I mean, China's got a population of 1 billion, as does India, and they've been very aggressive in places like Japan. But your comment is right. Right up until about the 1970s, 1980s, De Beers had a stranglehold on diamond production, and it was, in reality, a cartel, and the US government would not allow directors of De Beers entry into the US. It's because the cartel has weakened, but my opinion is that between Mr. Putin in Russia and the main producers, it's in their interest to see prices maintained at a fairly high level. And so I talked about the dark side and fundamentally blood diamonds, but the whole selling and marketing, supply-demand of diamonds is a very tough to understand business. So good question.
In the back?
Perhaps you answered this, but if you did, I didn't hear it. Since you declared, I believe, that diamonds are the hardest substance in the world, I'm curious what they use to cut them. That has to be harder, I would imagine.
Yep, I've got somewhere in this pile of stuff, I do have a photograph of the cutting. Basically what you do, you make a paste of diamonds into, yeah, you see it here, this one's up here. You make a paste of diamonds, and it's those diamonds that will grind down the diamond in the facetting and cutting.
And our last question?
Good.
About the helenite, what is the price per carat, and what is it? Is it available?
You want to buy it?
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, it's expensive stuff. Price per carat helenite, I do have that information. I've left it at home. I would suspect you could probably find something like this 4-carat ring helenite is probably surrounded with diamonds. I would anticipate the cost of a stone that size would probably retail somewhere around $800,000.
Okay, that's it. We all don't have the money for them. Forget it. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Oh, it's a lot of fun doing the research for this, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, you know.
So everybody, if you'd please, you can turn on your cell phones if you'd like. Please stack your chairs, pick up your coffee cups and your shawls and things, and take your conversations outside when you're as soon as possible. Look forward to seeing you next week.